I was like, to be honest, I'm not against cabals. If a cabal has a certain goal to actually grow and be positive about the industry or positive about whatever it is, then that's fine. If I ever did this business based on what somebody felt or tweeted, I would have, I'm not even on the Twitter. I think people always feel like if I don't dance, will I make a blockbuster title? And I think that's so unfair. It irks me.
It's another beautiful Good News Naija podcast episode. And of course, my favorite person in film is my guest today, Mimi Bartels. I remember reading an IMDb report that states that Mimi holds a 2-1 business administration degree from Liverpool John Moores University. She started her film career as a production assistant in 2010. Amongst other notable efforts, Mimi spearheaded distribution for 70% of the all-time top 10 box office releases in Nigeria since 2016. Mimi has worked in over 25 co-productions and has producer, co-executive producer, supervising producer credits in over 14 films. As co-founder of Anakle Films and a creative strategist, Bartels has not just produced films, but has been instrumental in reshaping how African stories are conceived, produced, and presented to the global audience. It is my honor and my privilege to have Mimi Bartels join us on the Good News Naija podcast. I know you'd enjoy it. How much has your life changed since you moved from Film One?
Like on a scale of 1 to 10 or like percentage?
1 to 10.
11? That's the truth. It has changed.
How so?
The major change I'm creating now, I always joked that I wanted to create just because like intellectual property is like, I just want to pass something down to my kids because I just felt like I was always a part of people's stories and helping them make money. And I felt like the ultimate way, that's one thing I learned in Film One, to be honest, like the making money part of stuff. So I was like, I think it's time for me to start creating. So now I'm actually a creator and I'm still producing as it is, but I'm entering rooms that I didn't think that I would enter. And I've always when I was in Film One, I always kind of hid. Even if it's like a premiere that is our film, I would still I don't do red carpet. From what IMDb says, because honestly, I need to sit down and write it all down. I know it's like 19 films that I've either co-EP'd or produced or supervised. And I've only done 2 red carpets in all of that. And when I even did that, it was because the people that were the spotlighters had not shown up yet that I now did that. I'm still not the one in front of the camera now though, but at least I'm entering rooms, just especially because of like the Black Book as well, and how eager, like you don't even recognize like what you have achieved until you actually hear it, from people. And when I was in Film One, I never had the space, or rather, I never allowed myself to hear it because there was always something back to back. There was just never a time to pause. And then I have Christmases now because, Christmas is the battle of something. Every Christmas was a battle of something, but now it's like, so this is my second Christmas in 8 years that I've had. So at least my kids see me now. So when I mean 11, I really mean 11.
Okay. So, because in my head, I know how when people know you for this and how importantly you were playing in their lives to make money, and then you now move to now become a creator, and then somewhat now like their colleague who is also making films and trying to get distribution the same way they are trying to get distribution. It's a whole new trajectory. Did any of that change some of the people who were rabble-rousing around you? Because I would imagine that even 2 years ago when I think my first engagement with you was the King of Boys documentary. When I saw you there, I was like, oh, exciting, I need to know this person. And then you were on the panel that I also anchored, and then we just built a relationship. But how has that changed? Like the people who, or when you are people always pitching to you or trying to network you at every event because they're either trying to get distribution or trying to get a co-production or trying to just cow favors from you. And now just seeing you, I'm like, hey, I know you, somebody.
You know, so when I was even in Film One, I always used to say, I'm at your service. And people didn't get that. So I remember I said that to somebody, and this was post my leaving Film One, and I said that the person thought like maybe I was being rude. Like I'm so sorry, but I genuinely see myself as a servant to the industry. So even as I've left now, believe me, they haven't left me because I'm just like, guys, I'm like, even the hampers are still coming up. I'm like, guys, I've left that space, but but what I found is that people are not even necessarily looking for investment. They're actually looking for guidance. And I mean, I still get asked about funding now, and I'll always want to co-produce. It's just that the slate now is just few, but we are working on co-productions. But I've honestly, I haven't left that space completely, or rather, they haven't left me completely, and they do feel I still have leg to help one way or the other, which I do, to be honest. I don't even think even myself can leave that because I don't feel that we are where we need to be as an industry. So I can't even say like, oh, I don't do that anymore, blah, blah, blah. So even if you have your film coming out, if you ask me, I'll be like, oh yeah, you should do this, you should do that. I have been into rooms where, I'll give you an example, like the other day I went into, to see my friend, and the person was on a photo shoot set. And when I got in there, I was still being asked questions like, oh, I have my film coming out. What do you advise I do? I still saw filmmakers yesterday. I was saying, my film is coming out. I'm going to buzz you for advice, blah, blah, blah. I find that people need that advice more because the advice actually leads to profit. So I find that that's what people are looking out for more than, oh, I want funding for my film, blah, 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 blah. I still get asked, I'm not even kidding you. This week alone, I've been asked like, oh, do you know where I can get funding? Can you hook up with this person? And I think I'm like Nokia. I'm just good at like connecting. So I just connect and it's still there. So I don't think that would ever change. And I understand people seeing me in this light. And I believe that people always evolve. I'm just in my evolving stage. And there's no conversation I don't enter with my distribution hat or my producer hat on. I think I'm quite blessed to have all three sides of the coin, or rather like, the coin has two sides. Well, mine has three now. But distribution, producing, and creating. So like, yeah, I'm blessed. But no, they've not left me. They still see me like that.
But those hampers, do they work?
Of course not.
Because in my head, so what is usually the goal when people send those? And I also understand because it would be rude if you reject them.
Yeah, with me. Because even when I was in Film One, I used to get hampers. And I said I'll never reject a hamper because the person doesn't know how else to appreciate what I have done or like we have done for them. In Nigeria is the best way to show appreciation. Even when you're fighting with your lover, like, have you eaten? So that's why I feel like that's how they are. It never came off as a bribe kind of gift. I mean, unless I missed the memo and like people are watching, they're like, hey, she didn't understand. I was looking for bribe. That's a different conversation in itself. But like, no, I find it that it's a form of appreciation. And this is the little way in which I can appreciate you. There are people that I have never even done anything for that would still show appreciation, apparently just because of what I have done in the industry. And the things, I don't know what I've done in the industry. I genuinely, I don't. When people, I was somewhere and somebody was like, I was in the supermarket. I felt like, oh, Mimi, it's good to meet you. I'm like, how do you know me? I'm behind the scenes. I don't take pictures. Are you like stalking me? What's going on? Like, I don't do interviews. This is probably my third interview that I'm doing sitting here. So like, I don't know how you know me.
So in your journey as a producer, creator, and a film executive, how does a person rise to become those? Because again, when I look at your profile, it states that you've done this for over 15 years. And that comes with a lot of winging it and trying to build an industry that now is, and taking a bet and almost also shaping the industry. So a lot of what we now know as the industry was shaped by you looking at the industry and also just saying, this is how I think would be the best way to move to where we want to go. So how do you get to that? Because you're literally building from no template, because when we want to get to Hollywood, but then the Nigerian film industry is the Nigerian film industry and would always be the Nigerian film industry. We just need more structures and strive for excellence and all of that. But how did you grow?
So I think I come from a place of privilege, because I happen to be surrounded by people who had the same goal and dreams. So it wasn't hard to pick up. You see, the thing is, again, I don't even realize I'm doing what I'm doing until after it's done, or interviews like this. I mean, when I got into, funny enough, I was interviewed for a marketing position, head of marketing. And then, but that pay was higher. And then I was asked to, there was another position that was assistant operations manager. Then I asked, like, what's that position about? And they said, oh, it's basically like, you know, the actual numbers of the thing and the distribution. I was like, I want that one. And they're like, no, that's the, I mean, I don't think I would have cut it as well as, like, you know, the marketing manager I was hired, to be honest, but like, that's the one I wanted because it was easier for me to shape. And even when the company got like the Warner Broses and the Sonys of the world, I'm not interested. Is this Nollywood I want? Because it just allowed me to play. Like you said, like I was working with a fresh template, and I just recognized, because I realized that like I love film. I love music and film. See, it all works together. Oh God, that's such a mom joke. Oh my God. But I love music and film. So I actually started, when I moved to Lagos, I actually started in music. But I was like, no, this music, I don't understand this, because they're not quite as organized as I would have liked them to be. So like, let me go into film. And then I realized that, like, because I have an economics background, I was like, so I can make money in film? Like what I actually like to do? This is my dream job. And then I've been trying to prove this finance thing that my mother has been on me, in which the plot twist was that I thought my mom was in finance, but she was in HR. So really I went against her will. But anyway, that's by the way. And when I first got in, I remember I saw one of my first films. I saw a trailer and I said, I'm not doing this. I'm not releasing this trailer out to the world. And I'm like, this does not represent the film at all. So we went to like cut a new one. And then that now became a thing, because for me as a distributor, my job is to look at a film and say, how best can I make sure that this film shines? And if I start seeing little things like this, that, oh, this trailer is going to kill the numbers for this film. And it was actually a Ghanaian film that was released in Nigeria. And if you know, Ghanaian films don't track that well in Nigeria. But from seeing that trailer, because there were Nigerian elements in it, we cut it around. That Don Omokwe, I can never forget. I said, Don, this trailer can't go out. Help me. So he went to go and cut it, because he was working in BBC in the UK, and he moved to Film One as well. And that's kind of where it just, spiraled. And that's when I think people started realizing that, no, I'm just thinking about it as I'm having this conversation with you, to be honest. I've never thought about it before. I think that's why people started seeing a certain quality in what Film One would bring. I think my last count was like 110 films that I had distributed. So imagine like looking at all these films and saying like, what's the best look for this? What's the best look for that? Blah, blah. So it's not necessarily that we're working with a new template. It was just that, how can these films have the best day in the spotlight? If it now became a template, we apologize, but that was not what the intention was. The intention was just more of, filmmakers have invested money in this film. They need to get their money back, and I need to get my 10 to 13%, if anything. So I'm getting a bit emotional, just even just think, because honestly, I haven't had these conversations, with myself before. And to be honest, nobody has ever asked me this before. But it was a lot of pressure, but then I never considered it as pressure. I considered it as, this is somebody's child, and how do you take care of this person's child? And that's just how, whatever it is that transpired. I imagine that there are many rumors that people came out with that were either thieves or, what's the other one, like cabal. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, to be honest, I'm not against cabals. If a cabal has a certain goal to actually grow and be positive about the industry or positive about whatever it is, then that's fine. But honestly, we were just working as it was. I didn't plan to do anything that happened. I just knew, like, if I see a poster, it can be better. That was my honest thinking. And I'm happy if it's considered a template and people have. I honestly haven't gone back to check, like, oh, is somebody following this as a template before? But the only thing wherever I see that people may consider a template is how to get a box office title. Pack like 10 superstars in the film. Whatever. It works for some, it doesn't work for all. But what I found that when it works for some is that there's people feel the heart in it. And I think that's what people feel to understand, that Nigerians are just looking for heart in stuff. Like, I see where that person was going with it. And if you track all the box office success, you would see that if you look at all the films that have hit that mark, you can see that person actually put their heart in it. There are some that just do it because it's the next money to make, but the ones that actually like have the heart in it. Not that, oh, I'm a small filmmaker, I'm trying to make money. There's a heart, but yeah.
Now, because when I think of Nollywood and blockbusters now, there are some people who, everybody's now very concerned about how their posters look. And then there's now that has now created like a business for some poster designers. I now know two who's like, if you don't use this guy, you're using this guy. If you are trying to be artistic, you use this guy. If you are trying to make a blockbuster, use this guy. So, so that's some of the templates that people have seen that works from you, and all those taglines that you. Oh
wow! Oh yeah, I was such a fan of.
Like you're like, oh, this is a tagline for the. So it's now something that it's deliberate, even for YouTube films. Now you see people trying to do that deliberate work for these films. Whenever I'm thinking of film money, which is something that you are very involved in, I try to think of it from the Naira perspective, which is our spend money, and then also think of it from maybe an auxiliary currency, like maybe the dollar or the euro or pound. But when you convert it, it doesn't seem like a lot of money, the monies that we sometimes celebrate here. But it's still important for the industry that we're trying to build. So how do we marry this conversation about a growing industry that is trying to attract the world? And because you're in these rooms and trying to sell these stories and trying to make sense of these, even make films that are very big that can compete and all of that, how do you make business sense of the profits and the losses?
I always say this thing, like, what do you measure as success? Say me and you do a film now and the film makes 40 million at the box office. Some people would say like, oh, it tanked. But maybe I made the film for 2 million. So I'm walking away with like 12 million naira. I'm laughing all the way to the bank. You're laughing at me. But I'm at the bank looking at you, laughing at me. So I think that's what confuses people sometimes, because you can't really compare with a country that has like 10,000 to 20,000 screens in comparison to a country that has like 80 screens. And that's actually where the business, that's why it looks attractive. That in a country where it's not even a triple digit number, it's making these numbers. If maybe I invest a little bit more, I would get. Funny thing is that South Africa gets most of their profit is made from Nigeria in terms of like the films that they sub-distribute that comes here, because some of these Hollywood titles come through a South African company, and I remember being in rooms with them then, and they were like, "Oh, these numbers are good." I'm like, okay, thank you. But if you're looking at it like, oh, abroad, this is how much it made, blah, blah, blah. But for them, that's one film. You're looking at a volume of titles. So as much as if you convert, and to be honest, what year were we converting? There was a time that Naira was 100 Naira, and now that is 1,700 Naira, if anything. But that's even by the way. It's not necessarily the amount comparing it to the Hollywood titles. It's how much was put into the system that you're not getting out of. That's what people don't understand. So even when I know films that back then, like 2016, that would like 70, 80 million in box office, but you don't know how much they made the film for. So they can actually afford to make these numbers and be okay. If you like convert it and say, oh, only $70,000, so about you. To them, they've made like a good calculated 3% of that. That's what they walked home with. So I think that's where people always get it wrong. People don't honestly understand the numbers game of film. Of course, even if you convert the Wedding Party numbers and A Tribe Called Judah and all of Funke's, successes, it's still about that same, cap of dollars. But it helps that those films help other filmmakers abroad even enter the room. Because they'll be like, oh, man, Nollywood, I saw this, I saw that. So I don't think people realize if not, we would have all packed up and said, we're not doing this film thing again now. But I don't think people understand the magnitude of what a Wedding Party would do, or a Funke's film would do, or a Twain Abraham's film would do, to the people that are outside. I know people that I didn't even think were in the abroad space, and I met somebody there and they're like, oh, and that person, somebody in Nigeria, like, oh, somebody called me from there. And I'm just like, but I know that person's film did not even release internationally. But the fact that they have been encountered or they've seen, because the yearbook did play a very big role in terms of investments into, I still know people that want to invest in this country. Another thing that we should be looking at is the community cinemas. And I didn't even realize that the government even waived, if you wanted to open a community cinema, you don't have to pay the licensing fee for that. In comparison to you owning, I guess a luxury cinema, if you want to call it that. So I don't think people are understanding how much is being achieved. And I get it. It's our way to only see the surface. It's our way to only read the one line. And that's fine. If I ever did this business based on what somebody felt or tweeted, I'm not even on the Twitter. So I can't even help whatever anybody feels. But ultimately, you converting the amounts, it doesn't even depress me, because I understand what it means to sell one ticket in Nigeria. First of all, even in Lagos, even if Lagos occupies about, I guess, 47% of the market now, do you know it is to sell one ticket?
A lot of TikToks.
Do you understand? You are dancing. Hey, Father God. I'm PRing it. And PR is not as is. And anyway, let me not even. I have feelings on that topic, so let me just leave that alone. But yeah.
We are not leaving it alone.
No, I don't mind talking about it just because of the context of the question you asked. I didn't want to now divert to something else.
But how do you decode? For you, decode a cultural phenomenon because Funke has had a back-to-back, even Twain Abraham. Now it now feels like a December war, and then a December. Everybody wants to be in the December.
And that's the keyword that you said, and I love that you said that it feels. What they've done is they've created a diverse market with their stories, and maybe it's part of the job as well. I can see something. And I can tell when it's going to be a slam dunk. Because even with Black Book, apparently I'm the first person that DT ever told about Black Book. I didn't know that. But when you told me, I was like, this is going to be a hit. I'm investing in this. I was already on it. I knew I was going to put money in that. But then the budget started. It started go. So I didn't know how. And the thing is, I don't blame anybody because it hadn't been done before. And I had a board. How am I going to explain that this kind of money in 70 cinemas at that point, how are you going to make your money back? And then if you had released in cinemas, the exclusivity would not be there anymore. So you won't be able to get that, higher fee. But once I didn't even read the script at that point. once I heard about Black Book, I was like, he's inside. So I was actually involved with him till like script development of it. Like even when they were shooting, I was still going to sets because at that time we had recognized that we can't invest, in the film anymore. But there's just a certain, should I call it je ne sais quoi? One thing I think I'm blessed with, and I hope others are too as well, is I know what Nigerians, I don't think Nigerians know what they like, but they know what they don't like. So it's kind of easy. All I do is I tap into myself as a Nigerian. I know I'm a bit bougie. Let me ask me up. I know that I am, but there's a core inside of us because if you think about it, all these films, you have people that are buying out cinemas to watch it. Why are the upper class coming to come and watch these films that are apparently about the ghetto or something? There's something that we ultimately connect to. And I feel like everybody has this experience. They just don't want to tap into it. Maybe I just did and other people that are distributors do. But there's no decoding of this thing. I think what people just forget is that I never use myself as a template. I always think of what the next man would like. And I think if people just focused on how do I make this story relatable? People forget that very important word relatable. As far as anybody can understand, Marvel's is one of the most relatable films ever. Because when you're going out with your friends, people assemble. It's just that you don't have superpowers, but then you have superpowers in your own right. I'm sure you've seen this TikTok thing where you see, the friend in the group chat, the one that replies on time, the one that did it. Everybody has their own kind of superpower. So Marvel and the industry of superheroes are actually relatable because people also want to be saved. So it's that when you're writing these things out, like when your story comes out, it's like, how do I see the beginning and how do I see the end? And most importantly, I always wonder, I always work towards how people feel.
Speaking about decoding, these titles and all of that. So, and then you were talking about the fan bases of these people as an important factor.
Mm-hmm.
And
an important factor for the numbers that you see. Because I think people don't think I'm going to go controversial here. But I think people forget the power of new IP. And I'm very interested to see what something about the Briggs does. Because that's a new, she doesn't have any existing IP in the space. And I remember when the film was being shot, we all knew that film was being shot. And I think sometimes it's to take risks. And I say that coming from running a production studio and also in distribution for 8 years combined. Because the Black Book was new IP, and there are babies that are online that can be pulled from it. I think people always feel like, if I don't dance, will I make a blockbuster title? And I think that's so unfair. I think it irks me because this is a woman that, and of course, point of topic here for Funke is because she's the highest selling of all time as it is. So that's why we are discussing her. Because this was somebody that was really in her lane and was already dancing. And it just became that people identified with her because there was a certain joy. Like, whenever there's any rumor about her, she's gonna dance. So I don't know these songs, but like you're seeing somebody that is genuinely enjoying what it is that they do. So before the ghetto business came out, she was already doing the dance. It's not like it's something that just woke up, and it just feels like people say copy and paste, but I don't necessarily call it copy and paste. I call it security. Now, because I've seen somebody that has done this, if I do it, I also will achieve it. But people forget that there are ingredients to actually making soup. We can all make stew, but there's no stew that tastes the same. There's no chef that will cook stew and everybody's own taste the same. We might all use the same ingredients, but there are many ways to, as they say, skin the rats. But I think it's very unfair to say, if you don't dance, you'll not make. But even I make the jokes as well. But like, I make the joke in terms of that, like, just do your own. If you do your own, Shebi Demi released film, did he dance? Us Fair in Love. He did one dance, and that was it. But it seems to be like a continuous thing. It's not a copy and paste scenario. It's the same way Wedding Party came out. And even Kunle's films is that if you follow this model, you're going to get a box office title. The same thing, bless you, templates. That if you do BTS, if you release BTS first, then if you introduce all your crew, then and everybody just start following. Like I guess it's an homage to the Empress herself. But when they started doing Wedding Party, I don't remember Mohabudu doing a dance. She didn't do a dance.
That would be so weird.
I mean, it's now that my mommy will come and do that, if anything, and I tease her about it because I can just tell a woman that is in her prime and is enjoying her life, and the best dance she can do is two hands. But if everybody is releasing a film, you don't necessarily have to do this thing. So it's that this new IP. How can you coin? Let's use Deadpool, for example. Ryan Reynolds knows that I am a joker and people don't take me seriously. So I'm going to use this thing about me and sell this film. The same way Deadpool was sold was not the same way Marvel, whatever was sold. Avengers, thank you. It wasn't the same way. So that's what I was trying to remember. I kept saying Marvel films. But anyway, it's still the same. It's not the same template they used. Even as they were doing Wicked that came out, how they said in the film were two sisters locked in arms and like, oh, you look so good. Oh, bless you. You are loved. Blah, blah, blah. They knew what they were doing. Somebody sat in the room and coined that thing. Or they saw it the first time I said, this works. The same way Lady Gaga was selling A Star is Born.
Yes.
She made sure that in every situation, say, there are many people in the room, but there's one person. Why was she replying? Because she knew that it was going to pick up. People were going to start making fun of it and they're going to be like, let's play a drinking game to this. You have to literally see your film and think, what's the best way to market this film? And I think that's where we kind of gotten lost in this Nollywood that we're doing, is that everybody's rushing for a buck. And I imagine that there's so many rumors that have come out in the last, 3 weeks with like Netflix leaving and stuff. But like, all in all, people just really need to understand that it all comes down to a business decision. Last is that, has this worked? Has this not worked? And that's what selling films really is. Like, if I'm releasing a film, I promise you, I'm not going to be dancing. I've always respected anybody that can do it. I mean, I used to be a stepper back in my day, but like, I can't do it now. If I do it, you tell it's fake. And then again, nobody's going to care if I'm dancing or not. It's probably industry people, they'll say, Mimi is cuckoo mad already, so there's no point in it. So I generally feel like I used to think that there was a sure win. There is a formula. No matter how we look at it, there is a formula in terms of getting a good director, getting the right cast for these things. And keyword is right cast, because you don't have to put every Dick and Harry in your film. And I feel like the greats that do have this box office success in Nigeria have understood what the right cast is. And I remember when they were doing Wedding Party and they literally broke it down. It was actually a science. My former boss, Ken Elparo, and all of them, he always spoke about it. That's even why I'm referencing him. He broke it down in terms of, if I'm putting this person in this film, this person has this kind of connection. If you're putting this person in this room, this person, if we put these people together, remember when this happened? I mean, we thank God that Banky and, Adeswa fell in love. So it just kind of all worked out. And he was like, yes, we have a thing. It's that they focus. If not, why would we be mentioning that they're engaged? You worked to the title. Just work to your title. Well, sit down in the room and actually say, like, what do I need to put together to actually market this title that actually reflects the film and my persona? Not something I have to create. And even if you have to create a persona, call it something else and say, because I love how DM is always insulting AY. Every time they're pushing the waiter, there are just many ways to sell a film. But sorry, I genuinely have feelings about this. That's why I just think it's unfair.
I love it. Would you say, so a lot of, and I remember it was one of the conversations, the first panel I interviewed was, we spoke about how a lot of people somewhat blame like this trope of, what sells in the Nigerian context is comedy to you. Do you agree that, because again, you're still the same person who greenlit and pushed titles like King of Boys, but then a lot of these conversations are like, there was a time that it became very popular that was like, you have to make a comedy or put a comedic character in a story.
This is exactly what I'm saying. Is that Nigerians, the problem with us is that once we see something hit, all of us are going to run. No matter what it is. If it's Bitcoin, we're all going to run to Bitcoin. If it's MMM, we're all going to run. If you check our fundamental personality as a nation, is to run towards something that you feel is going to be a success. The only reason why that comedy, you see, that's why I get annoyed, because it's the same thing about like, if you dance, you sell a film. Is that comedies just happen to be what that person felt like making. And the reason, and if you ask any of them individually, why did you choose to do a comedy out of everything? They're going to tell you the truth. The country hard. People just want to laugh. People go to the cinema to escape. And the best way for a Nigerian to escape is to laugh about it. We're going to make a joke, whether it's Tinubu has now become T-Pain or something's going to happen. Like, it's just our very fundamental thing is to turn things into joke. That's the only way you're going to survive as a Nigerian. So no, I don't believe that even when we greenlit Adire was a film that was tackling very deep issues in terms of like the religious versus hope. Let's put it in the most simple way. That's what it was, because it was a whole religion versus a woman that you deem a prostitute, and that's all you ever, see her as. So when, and to be honest, when some of the most successful titles, that's my problem with us. Let's go back in time. How many comedies were hits? Living in Bondage wasn't a comedy. Irapada was not a comedy. EJ was not a comedy. Comedies came really when AY became the Guinness World Record holder. Suddenly, let's start doing more comedies. And then everybody now suddenly said, oh, it's only comedies. And I just feel like our problem as filmmakers, I'm not even talking about the big ones or whatever, even at the lower level, you're so focused on an unnecessary anger. I'd rather you be angry about the Harvey Weinsteins of the filmmaking industry or taxes. Do you know how much taxes are being charged when you release a film in the cinema? At least I know they charge entertainment tax, VAT. No, it's VAT on it. Withholding tax. Go and fight for those. Why don't we have more co-production treaties? Like, deal with your issues. But no, it's that, oh, a comedy, this is, and then suddenly there's now a divide. Oh, I'm more artsy. I'm be artsy. Do you know, this might be an exclusive if anybody cares. I'm more of an artsy film lover than I am a commercial film lover. Like, I watch, how to downplay my brain is that I watch Oscar-nominated titles. And we all know that they're very artsy. And I love festival films. But I understood that I had a job to do so I can differentiate and say, oh, this is going to make money, and blah, blah, blah. So no, the thing is that it's fear that keeps holding us back. And I feel like if you tell a good story, whether it doesn't, people don't realize that Kambili didn't actually make box office numbers. It didn't. But we understood what it is that we're trying to aim for. And I remember then, I was in a bit of trouble then, but I was like, I want to do a film where it's not A-listers and see what happens. Rom-coms are loved. Like, let's actually put people that can actually act. I had never, in fact, I didn't even know that I knew Venita. Like, she was a friend of mine's friend, but he always used to talk about her, but I never knew her. I was watching Africa Magic one day, and I was watching Unmarried, and then I saw her and I said, who is this woman? And that's honestly how she was. So I was genuinely just looking for people. Like myself and Kadi were just looking for people, and the writer as well, that who can actually act and put these things. And I was like, you know what? I mean, Nancy's my bae. I love her. And I was like, Nancy is always second fiddle. Let me make her prime this time. Let's show the world. I mean, I think that's more of a they call, to be honest. And then that's what happened. And Kambili gets relicensed at Netflix every time. That's why you will never just search for Kambili and it's not there on Netflix. So no, it's not a comedy. And that was even a romantic comedy. And we all know that rom-coms don't even do that well. But they do better on streaming services. So no, it's us that has put this is comedy in our mind, because the films that you saw were making the money that you would like to make at the comedies. Nigerians like what they like. You can't force things upon people that they want. If you cut your trailer, that's why the trailer is so important. If you cut a mad trailer And when you were shooting your film, you thought about this is the part that if I put it, like I watched Suspicion. And honestly, when I watched the film, I said, there are even more parts in that film you could even put in this. Like, what are you, like to me, it just blew my mind. Like 1000%. So like, I don't know, I'm tired of us sometimes, but I can never get tired of us because I love this industry way too much. It is what it is. But yes, I hope I've answered your question with all the passion within me.
Yeah. So, how do we position African stories on the world stage? Because now we are having conversation, which is why I was very excited because for Black Book and what it did for every Nigerian filmmaker, whether they accept it or not. Like, Edity was traveling the world and engaging the world, but then it was important that was reflecting on the possibilities for us as an industry. How do we position ourselves, every other filmmaker? Because again, beyond box office in December or during the holidays or anytime you put it out in cinemas, there's also an international market that a lot of us want to access. So how do we position ourselves for that?
You know, I'm so glad you mentioned Edith traveling the world because people don't even realize how tired he was. Like,
I was saying he will post one picture of like,
I used to always tell him that I feel like you do these adventure stories because I feel like you want to tell like one adventure story one day. That's why you do these things. But he just genuinely likes to do. But the man was exhausted and he couldn't turn it down because every time he kept thinking, like he's not a martyr or anything. Just like myself, is like every time he kept being invited for something, is that I'm putting Nigeria on the map. I'm opening doors because he really did want cinema. He really wanted, like everything he was writing was towards cinema, but the numbers just weren't adding up. And it hurts him to his bone that like, why can't I make this number, you know, in the cinema? But I imagine that people have different impressions of what they think that they ultimately know. And he did everything on his own dime. I don't think people understand that. I mean, he had like 10,000 EPs. You know, and the thing, of course, everybody's going to get their slice back and everything. He did everything on his own. And I thoroughly respect him for that because I'm a lazy filmmaker. I'm in my house going like, so you have landed? We thank God. What am I saying? Because I really was that devil in his ear, like, this you better push this thing, this thing, blah, 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 blah. Say me, if you don't do it, okay, be there. Somebody will do it for you. You have to come big film. Okay, let it sleep now. Blah, blah. So like, that's really what it is. And I think one of the biggest things, and the reason why I say I'm giving this backstory is the importance of collaboration. Because Editi had a voice behind him. He had many voices that were divided. There's so many, and if you go back to Black Book, you see there are a lot of thank you credits on it. There are people that were just giving him advice. I mean, last time everybody's coconutted at the end of the day, like you want to do, and there are things that he fought for that, you know, ultimately make it. But the collaboration is important to put African stories on the map. I know everybody keeps saying like, focus on the stories that you're telling and focus on the local, blah, blah, blah. I'm with you, 1000%. But we're not going to get there if we don't collaborate. That's the foundation. Because everybody's going to bring something to the table that you didn't have before. Mm-hmm.
So from film one, you moved on to a very important role at Anakle Films as the co-founder. How important was it, and what is the goal for you with that move? Because now I hear you say you're now a creator, but what is that like? Because especially when you now put into perspective, there's all your experience from distribution, but then you're also thinking of an industry that you want to engage with people having fears of investment, with the rumors of this is what Netflix is saying, or this is not what Netflix means, or this is what Prime is doing, and this is not what it is. To now finding stories and now being a creator, what does that mean?
So I feel like it is scammed me. I mean, I first took I don't think many people know this. I took a 3-month break. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew that I was tired and I needed to rest my brain cells. It was in that space of, I'm tired. I think it now snuck in. And I was like, okay. I mean, we weren't even talking co-founder. It was just more of like, now that this is everything that we're trying to achieve, this Anakle Films was starting it from the beginning. You know, Black Book was the the door that opened, but like every single thing now is that we're starting from the beginning. And it's important because I'm now, literally creating, because I'm also head of creative, as well. So I also shepherd ADT's vision as well into the industry so that he can just focus, because he spent a very long time building. And I just wanted him to just like hone in on just the creative side, of it. So I'm coming from a space where my job was ultimately to make money on productions, but now I'm having to feed the the creative side of like to be honest, it's not really far from what I was doing as the GM. My job then was really to build a business, but now is that I'm building creative, because there are other creatives that are within the company that I'm also, ushering. Because I also did, I didn't realize, but everything I was doing was actually defined by 2 terms: development executive. I didn't know that that's what I'd been doing all these years. So and the development exec is really the shepherd of this thing. A development exec's job is to help the writer find all the voices that they want to let out, because the writers don't always know. They start writing, but sometimes they get stuck. That's the writer's block and this thing. It's really that development exec's job to cater and to take care of. So I'm having to do all of that. And then in my own, and I feel like I started creating out of like mistake. Like, let me just write this. Voila, somebody likes it. Somebody wants to invest. Somebody has commission. One chance. That's honestly how, and that's honestly how like my life has been going. I haven't woken up and I know what it is I want to achieve. I set goals for myself. I'm very weird. So like, even if I wake up in the morning, I say, if I get up and do this today, I can have ice cream by 6:00 and that's kind of goal. So people honestly think like, I'm driven by, no, I'm not driven by money. Is that I give myself a goal in my head. That if I do well today, I'm going to watch a Korean drama, and that Korean drama, because it's very euphoric. So I give myself goals for that. So honestly, I wasn't thinking like, I'm going to set a goal to be the best in blah, blah. One thing I always did know is that I wanted to be great at what I did. I just didn't want to be good, because I found I was good, at a lot of things. And coming into this co-founder space, I realized that I gotta be great at this thing that it is that I'm doing. So it's ultimately, so as a GM, I wasn't too worried about, my job was to make money, but my job wasn't to like track expenses and like what is coming into the company, blah, blah. But now I'm looking at, okay, what's the revenue for the company? What's the expenses of the company? What stories are we telling? Are we staying on point in terms of making local stories for the global audience? Are we making impactful stories? Because that's what I'm very big on. I only want to work on stories that will make an impact. Whether it is emotionally, or whether it is physically, or whether it is in terms of opening the doors for distribution, that's my only focus. So when I say I really care about this industry, I'm really thinking of what can I leave my children behind. I'm really thinking of like, what can other filmmakers take from it? So that jump is that I'm now having to think a 480 degree at this point, not 360 anymore. I was thinking like maybe like 180 and maybe like 190 then. But now I'm having to go, as wide as it is. And I do have some respect for my organs then, because there are certain things I want to do. And now I'm like, where's the money for it? I'll put it to replace it. But I'm like, oh my God, I've become one of those. Oh no. But what I'm making sure that I do is that I create a space where creatives don't have to worry about where's the money coming from, or how am I going to make the money back. Every partnership that I'm very big on partnerships. I don't even understand it. Why does somebody want to do all the work alone? People don't understand how lazy I am. I don't like to do work alone. I'm trying to make a space that is safe for everybody that comes. And I'm just trying to leave something for people behind. The biggest thing for us at Anakle Films is impact. And I think that's where I got a bit exhausted, because I was just making money, but I was a bit worried about like, what impact am I so the thing for me is like, so I lost my son, and when I was in that state of like depression, I watched something and it distracted me and it made me feel good. And maybe I may have used that as an addiction as well, maybe that's what my Korean. No, I've always loved Korean drama. But every time I want to feel a sense of euphoria, I watch a Korean drama. There's just a way that they are telling like just I don't know, it's very euphoric. I can't explain their romantic dramas. A simple touch would be like they've been lovers for a minute. I don't even know. But and I thought about it that like in this my state of sadness, these are the things that pulled me out of it. So I'm very, very concerned when I make a film because I keep thinking like in these 2 hours, let this person feel good. Like after they finish watching it, let them feel something that is not as negative as there's nothing more painful than a Nigerian doing that hiss to your film. I have never experienced it myself because I have not been there. But any film that I'm a producer on, just know that I was creatively involved in it. I don't carry producer title very often. It's actually 3 films I'm actually like producer title on it. One I felt like I was suckered in because of, anyways, it's kind of I always blame because it's him that started this my producing side of me that I didn't know existed, if anything. But yeah, I'm very concerned about how I make people feel.
You've spoken a lot about funding, and so for a lot of people who've made a lot of short films, young people who've made a lot of short films and are now trying to make their first feature, what is the path to that?
Man, I wish I could give you one very amazing, sexy answer like that. But it's belief. Not necessarily from the short filmmaker side, but the person that can actually believe that you can take it to feature film. It's networking. You
do believe that funding exists, and what is your aspiration for Nollywood? That'll be
my biggest aspiration is collaboration. I don't know any Hollywood film that only has one company that starts at the beginning. Like somebody should name one. Even like the Netflix ones that have been commissioned, you rarely see one company like, in front of it. And I don't know how it got this way. I don't know if I was an orchestrator of how it got this way, but everybody just feeling like I need to shine alone. I don't. Or everybody, the keyword is feeling. Like maybe you don't feel that way, but me as somebody else may feel like, oh, that's how you feel. I'm like, oh, I'm going to show you. I don't know how we got this bad. I mean, there was a company, I was so happy with this series that came out, Princess on the Hill.
I love it.
I mean, first of all, I'm addicted to it. I know that one dropping episode. I was so, I said, people trying to kill me. I was even like saying,
every Thursday, 12 a.m.
I'm there. Like, so I get so upset. I'm just like, so I watch this one. I won't see what's going to happen. Do you know, I'm going to wait till this thing. I didn't wait. I went the next week. I said, do you know what? It's okay. It's just that Showmax is not in there abroad. If not, I'd have been following. But then again, Oye is one of the people that I always believed in and whatever. That's a different story for another day. But I found out that like 3-4 companies came together to do that.
Blink, Source Productions, and Saga Pictures.
I was so, you don't even understand. I've been saying that thing everywhere. That, can you see? You can see the power when people collaborate. You can see the story is given. You can see the PD is PDing. Everything is happening. So like, we can actually do more if we just embrace that this work that we're doing, when you're raising a child, there's nobody that has said that they can do this thing on their own. That's how film is. That's how, series are. Before I say content, some people will be upset because people hate the word content to describe film, series, and everything. But if we can just collaborate, I just feel like there's so much more we could have achieved by now. Whether it's in the creating space, or whether it's in the distribution space, or whether it is in the actual infrastructure. But everybody is doing, let me not generalize, and let me not say that that's what is happening. Everybody feels, allegedly, that they're focused on their own, space. And I'm actually happy for these rumors that have come about because now it's made conversations happen that we all kind of kept quiet and we didn't know, we saw what we were talking about in our houses, but now everybody's saying it. And you know what? Everybody, let's bring it to the table. Let's table every concern. Okay, now how do we solve it? How do we now make sure that this doesn't happen again? That's where we should be. Like, why don't we... That's things that will. Collaboration is my aspiration for Nollywood. I'm not too concerned about the global stage. It's something I would like. So when I say, let me be more specific. When I say I'm not too concerned, I don't want it to be that the first Nigerian film on the global stage. I just want it to be a film. Like, let's break that barrier eventually, and that a good film just came out, and the people that happen to do it are Nigerian here. Because nobody says it when, an Egyptian, makes a film and say, oh, the first Egyptian film. When nobody classifies it as that. Like, that's where I want us to be, that we're not, because now it's not, and imagine that music went through it. It became Afrobeat this and African this. Now you're just entering the same Grammy like everybody else. That's where my aspiration for it.
All right, perfect place to end this. Thank you very much. This was very exciting. And I'm grateful that you brought the energy, even though you thought you
Yeah, I felt dizzy at some point. I was like, maybe slap myself. But yeah, I'm glad.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me questions that I haven't even asked myself, to be honest. So I appreciate that. Good news.
I had such a blast having these conversations. Could you tell? I mean, I was sweating throughout the episode, but that was because of the passion in the room, the excitement in the room for something as beautiful as film and an industry called Nollywood. And I really had a swell time. But speaking about things that we want you to do, we want you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the bell, and of course, follow us on all social media platforms. We are the Good News Naija podcast. My name is Desmond Eberkonwe. Thank you for joining us on this ride. See you on the next one.